Hi, and welcome to Discovering Dataflix. I hope the last 10 or so videos has helped you get a closer understanding of how the Dataflix language works. We're back in the office and we're going to write some code. I know I've promised to get to the data dictionaries, but I think that the things we will make now will help us in debugging and testing the data dictionaries later on. So without further ado, my name is Johan Brodfeldt, and today we're going to learn about writing to files. I want to add this as a function in the utils, and since it's not going to return anything, we can actually use a procedure. So let's write a procedure, and I just want to call it write file. And I want this to take 3 parameters. First of all, we want to know where the file is located, where we want to put the file. So let's make this a global procedure. And then we want a string is file path. The next thing is the content that you want to store into the string or into the file. So let's call that text. And you also have 2 options when you're writing to files. And the first one is just create a new file and start from the beginning to push everything into the file. And if there's a file already, then just overwrite it with the new data. The second way to write into file is to append in the bottom of the file. So what we want to do is we actually want to have a string is type. This could have been a Boolean as well, because I'm just going to use one letter, but I'm just going to write some documentation here. If we type W in S-type, that's creating a new file. And right. If we type A, that is create if not exist, and append data. So those are the things we want to add here. Now in Dataflix, the way you write to files is you open up a channel, and that's kind of the way to write to anything using Dataflix. You can write to a printer, you can write to some driver, you can, write to a port using the channel. If you want to write something, you type direct. You see you have input and output, so direct output. And if you omit the channel here, then Dataflix is going to find a channel for you and write to that. So I can say channel 1 here, and then is file path. So this would be one way to do it. And then if I wanted to write something, then I just say write line. I add the channel and then add the text here. And then when I'm done, I close the output channel 1. But I want to be able to write files even if I'm in the middle of writing to a file already in some script, because I'm going to use this write file feature as a debugging tool. So perhaps if I'm writing to a file, making some CSV data or some output, then in the middle of that, I would like to be able to just throw a debug log statement that writes to the file. So I'm not sure I want to write to channel 1 because that might be busy. So how we do that is create an integer channel, and then we move sequence new channel to iChannel. And that way Dataflex will create a channel for you, or find a channel for you that is available, and we can actually double check if the channel equals df sequential channel not available. And then just do procedure return false. So this could be a way to indicate that something went wrong. We couldn't write to this file, and then we do true if we manage to go through the code and write to the file. And of course, now we want to use this channel here, here, and here. And as we're using this method of getting a new channel, we also, after we close this, we want to send sequential release channel iChannel, because otherwise it might create some issues with reusing the channels, and if you write multiple times, then you might get out of channels. So that's a good thing to have as well when you're done. One thing that's important is the file path, and usually when you create a data application, you develop on your own machine and then you publish on the server, and the path might not be the same to the workspace, or you might not have the folder or want to have the folder at the same location. So there is one way where we can find the path to where the workspace is located, and then from there decide where to put the file relative to the workspace. Well, we can use a string as home dir, and we also need an s full path. Let's call it full file path, and then a handle, and let's call that handle object workspace. And what we can do with these variables is that we can get workspace of GHO application to HO workspace. So now we have the workspace reference here in our workspace, and based on that we can do get PS home of HO workspace to S full file path. And now instead of using the S file path, we want to use the S full file path, but then we're going to write it in the root directory. We have no way to control it. So we actually also want to move the S full file path minus the S file path. As you remember from the string concatenation video, minus means that we are concatenating without any spaces. So we want to move that to our full file path. So now we can write a path here that is appended to our existing path and creating the full file path. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we append or write to the file. And as I said, direct output that writes directly to the file. There's also another way to do this, which is append output, and then the same. And that will append information to the file. So we want to check if the S type equals write. Then we want to do direct output. And if it's A, then we want to do append. And we also want to check if the num arguments is equals to 2, because then we haven't supplied the S type. Then we want to move A to S type. So we want to set append as the default mode for this write file. You could use write if you want, but I prefer append. It's just a choice, whichever you want to use most, or if you want to omit this. You can also say that if num arguments is not 3, then just return false because you haven't supplied enough arguments. So there's a lot of things you can do here. So that is that, I guess. And I think we're ready to test if this works now. So we are going to add a new web view, and let's call that O file management, and then OK. And we're gonna look in the folder. Here we're in the workspace, and we can go into the data and uploads, or we can just write directly to the root here of the project folder, or we could create a new folder. Let's do that. My logs. So let's create that folder, and then we can go in here and check how this is doing. And in this little view, we would like to have a form where we can type the file name, a file name, and we might want a text field where we can type some data. Yeah, web edit. So we're adding a web edit to the view, and we can set the height of that. Yeah, we can actually set it to fill height, but I think that we set the height to 250. That's about enough, I think. And let's call this the data. And I don't think I need this to be that big, so we can actually add a button here. One button for append. And then we want to add one for write, just so we can test those two features. So here we go. And now on click, we want a string is path and is text. And now we just want to call the procedure, and we call a procedure by calling send write file. There it is. The path, the S path, we want to do a web get is value of path. What did we call it? File name. Yeah, okay. So file name to is path, and we want to get the its value of web edit to is text. And now we can say is path and is text. And in this case, we want to write, so we type a W here. And we can just copy this over to the append, but here we want to do an append instead. And we're good to go. Let's see how this works. So now I should be able to write my logs and /test1.txt. Here is some data. Here is a second line. And if I append, it will create a text file with this data. If I append again, it just continues to add those lines. And if I press write, it should have overwritten and just added the initial lines again. So now we have a function that can write to a file. I can change the name here and say this is file 2. Yada, 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 yada. And then I can press append a couple of times, and we can go back and see this, and we got text right here. I hope you enjoyed that video, and this was all I had for you today. Next week, we're going to create a small debug feature that will be immensely helpful when debugging applications and live testing applications. So until then, I hope you give me a like for this video if you want me to do more of these, and add a comment if there's something I missed or something you want me to do. And I see you next week. Bye-bye.